the way we believe is that it's not proper to kill people, and therefore, if you get in the service and you're issued a weapon and sent overseas and become involved in a conflict, that makes it a problem. And I was able to go through four island campaigns, and I never had a weapon, and I never needed one.
It began on the 21st of July, 1944. Allied soldiers landing here at Assen Beach on the island of Guam. They had to take it back from the Japanese soldiers, firing with machine guns and artillery, dug into pillboxes and caves. They had established strong defensive positions all along this coastline. It would become one of the crucial battles of the war in the Pacific. And yet one soldier would make a name for himself by saving lives. He refused to bear arms or carry a weapon in the midst of constant enemy fire. He was unwilling to take a life or even so much as touch a weapon. He did, however, say that he would be proud to serve his country as a medic if they would let him. No one imagined he could pull that off. Most of his comrades mocked and harassed him. His officers tried to get him discharged, thrown out of the army. But when the men of Company B assaulted Hacksaw Ridge on the island of Okinawa, something happened that would change their opinion forever. Medic Desmond Doss would be transformed from the most reviled to the most revered soldier. This man didn't just stick around the battalion aid station where he was assigned. He was determined to try to save his fellow soldiers wherever they were. He even insisted on going out with the dog faces on dangerous night patrols.
He'd go out, crawl around amongst our boys and see if they wasn't dead, he'd take care of them, wounded, drag them back.
And he wasn't supposed to do that?
He wasn't supposed to move at night. Them guys that's wounded out there, I got to go see about them. That's my job.
But this is what is especially remarkable about Desmond's experience on Guam. He had been one of the most despised and reviled soldiers in the military. He had barely survived his training days because of his refusal to carry a weapon.
My mother had a picture in the living room, a real large picture of the 10 Commandments. He would get up in a chair and he was reading them, and he couldn't understand why did Cain kill Abel.
I wonder how in the world could a brother do such a thing? To me, it was said, Desmond, if you love me, you won't kill. And as a result, I didn't want to ever take life.
His beliefs didn't allow him to carry weapons, but Desmond still chose to take part in the war in a way that would help people and save lives. So he joins up as a medic. And it all happened here at this Maida escarpment, also known as Hacksaw Ridge. In May of 1945, the advance of the 77th Division of American troops to Okinawa had hit a big wall, this cliffside. They met the most stubborn resistance here. The Americans took over this ridge and then were pushed back down, over and over. For several days, Hacksaw Ridge changed hands. Many casualties, of course. And the men kept seeing Desmond running down to get plasma for the wounded as mortar shells exploded around him. He just couldn't follow the standard procedure of only caring for men who seemed to have a chance to survive. Private John Centola would remember.
Desmond Doss, he was working on me, and he says, "Take it easy, you'll be all right." He says, and I couldn't believe how calm he was. And while he was working on me, I asked him, I says, "You don't have any weapons?" I says, "I'll give you a .45. He says, "No," he says, "I can't kill anybody, you know." He says, "That's my religion." And I says to myself, he's a warrior, you know.
Okinawa's defenders poured out of caves and tunnels everywhere, screaming, firing rifles, and tossing grenades. Captain Vernon ordered the men to dig in, but they were soon overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Retreat turned into panic as soldiers rushed madly back toward the cliff and tumbled down the cargo net. Many were cut down by enemy fire. Only one man remained here on top doing his job, and that was Desmond Doss, tending to the wounded and fallen. He felt compelled to get them off this ridge. Desmond had about 12 hours of light to get them down. He began by dragging them to the edge. And there he remembered something that would greatly help. A bowline knot he'd learned to tie as a kid. Desmond realized he could make the double loop bigger and slip a man's arms through them. Wrapping one end of the long rope around a shattered tree stump, he could lower the man down the cliff to those waiting under cover below. One wounded man after another, taken to the ridge, lowered with a bowline. The men looking up could hardly believe what was happening.
Time after time, I saw dogs go back into the enemy, into the Japanese, and pick up wounded, and bring them there and let them down on these ropes and one thing and another off of the escarpment. And the bullets were flying like bees or something. It was miraculous. I couldn't understand how he could do this.
Desmond kept praying, "Lord, please help me get one more." And he kept succeeding, even though when he had to stand up at the edge of the cliff to begin lowering each wounded man, the Japanese had a clear angle on his head and shoulders. Somehow, none of the bullets whizzing by caught this medic. Years later, in fact, one of those Japanese soldiers would actually recall that he had Desmond in his sights, but his gun jammed every time he pulled the trigger. He joined the war to help and heal. That day, 75 men would owe their lives to him. He rescued 75 single-handedly under intense enemy fire without ever firing a gun. After the war, Desmond Doss would be awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor by President Truman and would end up being the first conscientious objector in American history to win the Congressional Medal of Honor. You're never going to forget his incredible story.
Desmond, how do you feel about receiving the Medal of Honor?
I feel very highly honored because I like to feel like I am wearing it and honored all the men that paid supreme price for that country. And I thank God He enabled me to do what I did to save life.
The accolades bestowed on Desmond from the war have not changed him. Today, he is still that same little boy who walked 6 miles to give blood to a complete stranger and then turned around and did it again a few days later. He is a man at peace with his life, with his faith, and with his memories. But what became clear to me was that his whole being was so profound that it changed the world around him. I know, because Desmond changed me.